No one.
What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome to the latest Gators Online Podcast, live from Spurs Gridiron Grill. And Nick and I are here almost 0-3.
Not 0-3.
But not 0-3, although it will be interesting to see what the picks are this week for Florida, Tennessee, as we preview the Gators' first SEC road game of the season. We have Eric Cain on from VolQuest to talk about this top 20 matchup. College game day in Knoxville, first time since 2016. The Gators are the biggest underdogs that they've ever been in this rivalry. It's a lot going on, Nick.
Yeah, it's a lot going on in Knoxville. There's a lot surrounding this game. It's good to see this kind of excitement surrounding Florida, Tennessee. It seems like every so often, I go back to must have been 2014 with Will Muschamp when
right.
That was the year Tennessee was going to end the streak and they were going to win. And Will Muschamp was happy to see all these disappointed Tennessee fans leaving the stadium.
Treon Harris to the rescue.
Austin
Hardin with the game winner.
My guy, Austin Hardin. What a name. What a flashback there. It's good to see. Growing up in the 90s, like you and I did, this was always the game. It was Fulmer. It was Spurrier. Spurrier always making his comments. Oh, yeah, we play in week 3. They had a bunch of guys suspended for 2 games.
Yeah.
So it's good to see this kind of excitement back with the team and with the game.
Bobby, you think those Tennessee coaches are floating in the ocean right now?
Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get up to Knoxville. Knoxville is a sneaky good city. This will be the second time you've been there.
Second time.
I've been there every year since I've been covering the team in 2013. So I guess it's an even year game.
Yep.
So shoot, what is that? 14, 16, 18, 20, 22.
Seen all wins but one.
This will be my 5th time.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy atmosphere, sold out stadium. College game day there as well. So
checkerboard in Neyland.
That's always a cool sight to see. And a lot to kind of break down about this matchup. We'll do a lot of that from the Vols side with Eric after we jump to this break. But first, Nick and I got to at least give a little bit of a recap of what ended up being a barn burner in the swamp on Saturday night as the Bulls come in and give the Gators a run for their money. And Jeff Scott takes Billy Napier's team down to the wire. And if not for a low snap, and then a botch snap. I mean, 2 snap exchanges there that USF just did themselves in on the final drive, and the Gators hang on.
Might still be playing.
Yeah, that thing could have gone to 4 or 5 overtimes with the way that it was playing out.
Yeah, just I think on the defensive side, I think you see just how much you miss Ventrell Miller.
51.
And we released our grades. Ventrell Miller is without playing in that second game, still the highest rated defensive player for Florida. And Billy Napier said it before the game. It's not even necessarily what he's doing on the field. It's Ventrell is a 6th-year guy. The speed at which he can diagnose plays and relay that information to teams or to the rest of the defense.
Yeah,
that's just something that you're now hoping and praying Amari Burney can do, and it's not something he's normally asked to do because he's playing next to Ventrell. And the guys that are doing it, the guys that will be asked to do it now are a true freshman who'll be playing his 4th game this weekend, and a redshirt freshman in Scooby Williams. So
none of them have never played in an environment like Saturday.
No. They've and it'll be easier for the defense, and it's so funny because we've talked to a bunch of defensive guys this week, and you want to ask them like, hey, how do you get ready for the atmosphere? How do you get ready for playing in front of 110,000 fans? And they're like, honestly, it's gonna be easy. And they're right, because the defense, when Florida's defense is on the field, that place is quiet. Yeah. So we're asking defensive players, how do you do this? And they're like, I don't know, man, but I'm ready to play in some quiet, because it's been crazy for them on defense the last 3 weeks, having to make calls and checks. The Trey Dean might be able to hear Desmond Watson breathing.
Yeah.
Football is back. There isn't a better way to enjoy watching your favorite team than by playing daily fantasy sports with our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the simplest form of real money daily fantasy sports and pits you against the numbers. Whether you're a fantasy sports nut or a casual fan looking to add some excitement to the games, PrizePicks is the perfect game for you. It's the best way to have action on the game in states like Alabama, Florida, Texas, Georgia, Kentucky, and over 70% of the United States. PrizePicks is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. You simply select 2 to 5 players and predict if they will go more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Download the PrizePicks app or visit prizepicks.com and sign in using the code GATORS to get an instant 100% bonus up to $100 on your first deposit. So if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100 back. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. That's free money. Don't forget that PrizePicks app or prizepicks.com and the code GATORS to claim your bonus today and take your viewing of your team to the next level this season.
Welcome back into the Gators Online Podcast, live from Spurs Gridiron Grill, and we are now joined by our guest of the week, writer for Vols Quest and host of the Locked on Vols podcast, Eric Cain. Welcome into the show, man.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. We got a top 20 matchup taking place in Knoxville this weekend, and obviously Tennessee's gotten off to a really hot start. Big win over Pitt early in the year. Give us your early impressions of this team so far under Josh Heupel.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch. Obviously, it was fun to watch last year with kind of just the complete 180 offensively. You know, Josh Heupel, brought here to Tennessee compared to what was going on with Jeremy Pruitt. So it's been fun. It's fun when you have a quarterback, and Tennessee, since Josh Dobbs really hadn't had a quarterback, and Hendon Hooker's just a really, really good player. So offensively, they've just kind of been picking up. Now, Pittsburgh was a test, no doubt. Pittsburgh's a solid football team, but the other 2 games have been against MAC opponents, so it's been pretty easy. It's not going to be easy this Saturday. Defensively, I think they've taken a step. We'll see exactly how much of a step come Saturday, but it's been fun so far. They look good, and obviously are intrigued to see this matchup coming up on Saturday.
Before we get too deep into X's and O's, just what I was surprised to find out. So Florida leads the series 31-20, and Tennessee won the first 10 games in the series. What would last 16 of the last 17, I think,
Yep.
What would just this win for Tennessee fans mean? Being number 11, a chance to go into the top 10. Neyland's going to be checkerboarded. What would a win over Florida just mean for the fan base in their idea of Heupel and the direction of the program?
Yeah, I mean, it would be huge, and more so for that right there. Tennessee's kind of been right up to the brink a couple of times over the last, 13, 14 years. College game day, ranked inside the top 20, early season 5-0, 6, 4-0, whatever the case may be. And then you get to that stage and then you lose or something goes wrong, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. I think more than anything, a win against Florida on Saturday would give this fan base just even more confidence that Josh Heupel's got this thing going in the right direction. I think everybody thinks that already, but this would be a big time win. And more so than that, it's Florida. In my demographic, I grew up in East Tennessee. Florida was the biggest rival for Tennessee. You ask other people, it might be Alabama or whatever, but I think this Florida game means so much to a big portion to, a lot of people in this fan base, and kind of getting over that mental hurdle that's been 16-17, where Tennessee's been a better football team on paper and really on the field a couple of times throughout this losing streak and still hadn't found a way. I just think it'd be huge. Plus, it'd be a win where you still have Alabama and Georgia coming up later on the schedule, where those are going to be dogfights too.
Yeah, a couple games came down to the wire in the swamp that we got to witness. So you mentioned Hendon Hooker. Obviously, he's one of the headliners in this matchup. How much of a jump has he made so far? From this year to last, and just the comfort level in this offense. And I think last year in the swamp they were not operating at this clip in terms of the pace of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, he knows the offense. He has a more say in the offense. On game planning on Mondays and Sundays. He'll meet with the offensive coordinator, and they'll kind of not together, but Alex Golish will show, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing in this matchup. And Hendon now has the right to say, well, I like that. Oh, I don't know about that. And here's why. And they trust him. It's kind of a two-way street. And so the trust in the coaching staff, and I mean, the rest, the other 10 guys on offense, the trust they have in Hendon. The big thing about this offense, as you mentioned, is the tempo. It's the speed, the ability to run a play, starts with the center, get the football, spot it, give it to the official, and then get up there and then scan the defense and go again. I mean, it took Hendon a little bit last year once he was thrust into action to kind of get comfortable doing that. And really since then, it's just kind of gone on. So he's very comfortable. He makes great decisions. It's kind of funny if you really dig deep into Hendon Hooker this year, the first series or two of each of the 3 ball games so far, he's not been as crisp, but from series 3 on throughout the rest of the game, he's been almost dynamite. So you can't afford to really get off to a slow start, but he's been so good the rest of the game that Tennessee's offense just kind of feeds off that. And I think the defense has as well. And so, again, Tennessee just hadn't had a quarterback like this in a long time. And so it's been fun to cover. It's been fun to watch. And obviously it's been, racking up the wins a little bit here in the early going.
And that's interesting because the first 10 plays maybe are scripted, and you've run those. You walked through them, an hour before you got in the buses to go to the stadium. Those are the plays that when Florida had like Jim McElwain and Doug Nussmeier, they looked great their first 2 drives, and then once they got like off their script, they were like, all right, well, what do we do now? So it's interesting that you say that because you would assume that a quarterback or the entire offense as a whole would be more comfortable with that first drive, those first 2 drives that are scripted. But then you think of, okay, well, you get into the flow of a game and you get your feet wet and you warm up a little bit.
Yeah, it was funny. I've got the note right here. So this is just the first couple series of the ball game. I had a guy give this to me, so I don't want to take full credit. But to begin ball games this season, Heupel's been 9 of 23 for 94 yards and a touchdown, 39%. Started the Ball State game 4 of 8. Started the Pitt game 2 of 8. Started the Akron game 3 of 7. But then again, he ended the Akron game right there. He ended 14 of I think 19 or whatever. I mean, he's been so good this season. So it is interesting because those plays are kind of scripted, but I guess it just kind of shows that Hendon Hooker's played a whole lot of football and he can adjust on the fly and he can pick up things and kind of run with it.
What are the concerns with this matchup offensively for Tennessee going into this game against the Florida defense that, like you said, is probably going to have more speed, talent than what they've seen on that side of the ball, and maybe some of the issues that they have had offensively? I know there haven't been much. They have the nation's top 5 passing attack, but what are some things that we'll find out in this game in terms of how real Tennessee is offensively?
Well, the biggest concern this week is obviously on the injury front. Like Florida, I know Ventrell Miller's a dynamic quarterback of the defense, and his status is questionable for this football game, as I read on Gators Online last night.
Appreciate it.
But for Tennessee, Cedric Tillman, wide receiver, one of the best in the SEC, one of the best in the country, went down with it looked like an ankle injury there in the first half of the Akron game. We'll see if he can give it a go on Saturday. I don't know if he will. He's very questionable. We'll see if he can go. And then just starting running back Jabari Small went out of the football game after a second carry against Akron. Your third string running back, but again, they play multiple running backs. Dylan Sampson, true freshman, he went out in the third quarter with what looked like an ankle injury. So Tennessee got a little bit banged up against Akron, which is never ideal. You don't want that in a game like Akron. I feel better about the running backs, Jabari Small and Dylan Sampson, than I do Cedric Tillman. But again, I don't know. We'll see if Cedric Tillman can give it a go. We'll see if all 3 of those guys can give it a go. But even if they can, even say Cedric Tillman is out for this football game, say he can't play, Jalen Hyatt's emergence has been huge. Brew McCoy is another big physical guy on the outside that can move over and kind of take the place of Cedric Tillman. So that's better, but obviously you want your big guy on the outside, your security blanket for Hendon Hooker, and that's what Cedric Tillman is. So the health of Tillman, big time going into Saturday.
Any chance Brew McCoy transfers again?
No.
Before Saturday, maybe?
Finally found a home.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee fans are pleased with that, so hopefully not.
And then obviously, you look on the defensive side, you feel like you mentioned you feel like they've taken some steps. What have you seen from Tim Banks in this scheme so far? And, maybe the challenge that they have going up against a Florida offense that's led by Anthony Richardson, who's obviously got some dynamic ability, but has shown that, if they throw some things at him, he can struggle.
Yeah, and that's what Tennessee, I think, will do. Tennessee is a very aggressive defense. They were last year. They have been in the Pittsburgh game. They got all after Keaton Slovis, his backup Nick Patty, that went in the football game. I mean, they were relentless, and they kept that up against Akron last week as well. So I would expect a lot of blitzes from the second level, a lot of blitzes from the secondary. They'll bring their safeties from the third level and come off the edge a little bit as well. And so just trying to confuse Anthony Richardson, trying to get back there and make things difficult. He is such a dynamic player that if you give him time, I feel like he can figure it out a little bit. So I think they're going to try to bring some pressure and obviously trying to keep him bottled up between the tackles. Kentucky did such a great job with Anthony Richardson 2 weeks ago. And I think Tennessee would kind of like try to mimic that. Big week for Byron Young and Tyler Barron, the edge players, to keep him inside the tackle box. But I think they have better depth on the defensive line than I kind of thought they would be coming into the season. You lost Matthew Butler, who played over 800 snaps a season ago, but Amari Thomas has stepped up, have more depth at linebacker, which is huge. Tennessee played 3 linebackers last year. Tennessee now has about 5 that they feel okay to play in a football game. And the secondary is still kind of a work in progress, but you do have 2 veteran safeties in Jalen McCullough and Trayvon Flowers. So again, I think they've taken a step. I've liked what I've seen from them. Very aggressive so far. But now that you're getting an SEC play, you'll figure out just how big of a step that was.
What's their biggest weakness defensively that you think that Florida might try to exploit or attack?
A little slow in the secondary. I mentioned those 2 safeties. They played a whole lot of football, but they're a little slow, especially if they have to man up on somebody over the middle of the field. Cornerback also. You had Warren Burrell, who's been a starter for about 3 years. He missed last week with an injury. We'll see what his status is moving into Saturday. But I mean, it's not Warren Burrell, it's Christian Charles, who is a sophomore, a first-year corner, and is still kind of learning the position. So I think you're a little slow at safety. You're kind of new at one side of the corner. And you're still fairly new up front as well. I mean, they're going to play a lot of guys. And again, I think that they've been a little bit better up there, but playing some new guys to where you had some established guys like Theo Jackson, Alante Taylor, Matthew Butler. Those guys are gone. So just trying to get accustomed to everything. But I would say probably at the speed in the secondary at the safety position a little bit.
The offense is really fun to watch. How does that affect the defense? Because if you're running plays, every 16 seconds,
slow down, guys,
and you're scoring quick, the defense isn't really getting a time to catch its breath. Are you seeing the pace of the offense affect the defense at all?
Well, I think that, and again, they play 2 MAC teams, so we'll see. But they still rotated a little bit on a fair amount on defense against Pittsburgh. And when you are complementing an offense like Heupel's offense, you've got to play some guys. You got to be ready to play a lot of guys on the defensive front, rotate in your linebackers. They have 2 star players. Tamari McDonald's a starter, but Wesley Walker, a transfer from Georgia Tech, also plays a considerable amount of snaps. And so, really they've been rotating a lot on defense outside of those 2 safeties. I don't think they trust the depth behind those 2 safeties right now. But it's funny, man, against Ole Miss last year, I think this defense played 101 snaps. Against Kentucky, I think this defense played 97 snaps. Against Alabama, I want to say it was 94 snaps. I mean, they are out there for a long portion of the time, but I think they're used to it now. Whereas this time last year, I think it was a complete shock to the system. That's like, oh man, we're dog tired. They just had a 3 and out and it took 49 seconds off the clock. We had to go back out there, but I think they're used to it now.
Well, you get a year now. You're practicing against it every day. You've got a couple of springs and a couple of falls to practice against it, so you probably build up that stamina. But it was a silly question. I thought, well, maybe you try to slow some drives down, just as you feel a game out. But it doesn't seem to be like it's just. I likened it to an Indy car earlier in our first segment. It's just there's no break on the Tennessee offense.
Well, they will sometimes. So at Pittsburgh, in the second half, Tennessee's offense just couldn't get anything going. I mean, they were held to a field goal in the second half, and that is just not what we've seen in a year and a couple of games from Josh Heupel. So they went to the line. They would still hurry up to the line, but they stop, look to the sideline, slow some things down. But if that thing's going and they're getting 4 or 5 yards a pop and it's humming the way it is, I mean, they're trying to snap that football at like 14 seconds or so. So. Unless they're really struggling, I would consider the tempo to be, all gas, no brakes.
What were some of the issues there when they got held up against Pitt offensively?
Yeah, they couldn't run the football. They really didn't even try to run the football traditionally in that sense. I mean, they did a little bit, but what Narduzzi was doing defensively with his front and the backers behind him, they just kind of went into the game plan saying, all right, we're going to cut our losses. we're not going to try to run the football. We're going to throw it to Cedric Tillman 18 times in that football game, which is true. They did do that.
Yeah.
And they tried to run it with Hendon Hooker a little bit more. So, but the problem there was they weren't winning first downs. And so when you're at 2nd and 11 or 2nd and 9, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, I mean, obviously those aren't running situations. And so I just feel like the failure on early downs, and that's the kind of the thing, with Josh Heupel's offense, it's all about getting that first down. You get that first down, you move the chains, and you're kind of in rhythm. They just didn't do that a whole lot in the second half at Pittsburgh. But give them credit, they came out looking like trash in the first 3 series, and then they scored on the next 4 series. And so it was kind of hot and cold in that football game. But they got to win early downs, or that can be disastrous potentially for a Tennessee offense.
We're speaking with Eric Cain from VolQuest. A couple final questions for you, Eric. Nick mentioned how big a win like this could be for Vol Nation and the Tennessee football program. How much do you think this game means for Josh Heupel, a guy who, when he was playing at Oklahoma, this was the game? That was the game in 2001 that they played here that got rescheduled. I'm sure he remembers that. And then obviously was at Missouri, coached against Florida, and was here in the state at UCF and was kind of little brother to the Gators. So now at Tennessee with a chance to beat Florida, do you think that this maybe means a little bit more to him in any way?
Well, and also does some fans start thinking, okay, well, he's not the one if he doesn't beat Florida. Then you start 0-2 against Florida, and it's just, all right, well, we got another one that's going to beat the MAC teams and win some games, but we're not going to beat Alabama and Georgia and Florida.
That's a good question. I just think that, 16-17. Again, Tennessee's been the better team many times and just hasn't found a way to come out with a win. And that's so frustrating for Tennessee fans. And I think that, if you lose this game, I don't think anybody's calling for his head, obviously, but right. I do think there might be some of that thoughts like, oh, well, Heupel can't beat Florida. Pruitt couldn't beat Florida. Butch, beat Florida one time. It's just, can he eventually turn the corner? I just think this is the top of the game to where it just kind of solidifies that you are indeed on this right path. You are, taking a step, continuing to take those steps in the right direction. I think that's more than anything. Now, in terms of Heupel, he will never, ever say this, obviously. It's kind of funny, he's throughout the week on Mondays, he's kind of, loose a little bit, and he'll talk a little bit. And then, Thursday, this press conference we just came back from, it is game mode, right? He won't let anything out. He'll never say that one game means more than the other. He won't. But I think too, like he knows what's at stake. He knows what Neyland Stadium is going to be like. He knows all the outside noises of College game day and Checker Neyland and sold out crowds and all that type of stuff. I think he too knows that if you get this win, then you really are, buying yourself, not some grace from the fans, but you're earning even more of their trust. And obviously this is a big SEC matchup. So I just think it's a big game all around for Tennessee fans, of course, for the head coach and everybody involved.
And then final question or topic for you, Eric. How much has the spread been discussed in Knoxville this week from Heupel and the players, just, among sports talk radio? Like, is that a thing that puts any pressure on Tennessee in this game because they've never been favored by this much? Do you think it gives them confidence? What's your take on it?
Yeah, well, obviously the coaches and the players haven't said a word about it. I'm sure they know. I mean, you can't not know in 2022, right? Especially if you have a phone in your hand. I think it's been a point of discussion, for fans calling in radio shows or, writing to us at volquest.com or whatever. I just think at the end of the day, it don't matter if I think it opened, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it opened at 9.5. It climbed to 11.5. It's sitting somewhere around 11 right now. As long as Tennessee gets the win, I don't think anybody cares, right? Yeah. But I just think, when players were speaking to the media throughout the week and, you had a couple of robots up there saying, oh, it's just another game. We just got to move on, take care of us. And then some guys got up there and were really candid, Jerome Carvin, offensive lineman, Trayvon Flowers, safety, saying, this is why you come to Tennessee, to play in games like this, to play against your rival, to break losing streaks like what we're currently on right now. Their words, and so I don't think that they're paying too much attention to it. I'm sure they're aware of it, but I think Tennessee fans are confident, excited, but also know in the back of their mind it's like, well, this is Florida. It's not gone our way, the last 17 years or so. So I just think once Saturday gets here, it's going to get wild, and we'll see what happens.
Zach is going to be down on the field at Neyland. Does he need to worry about any mustard bottles, golf balls, anything in case there is a wild and crazy ending, kind of like we've seen in the recent years?
Gosh, I hope not, man. So I was on the field when that happened as well, Ole Miss last year, and I took myself up near the block wall there. I was actually in the north end zone, thankfully, not the south end zone, so I was okay. But hopefully you'll be okay. I'm excited to see that environment again. Josh Heupel's mentioned a couple of times. This is what college football is all about. Mm-hmm. It's going to be wild. It's going to be just a phenomenal environment. I think it'll be exciting to see, and we'll see if it can rival. 2015 Oklahoma. Everybody's saying that's been the loudest that Neyland Stadium's ever been. We'll see if it can rival that come Saturday night.
I remember in 2016 when I was on the field pregame for that Florida-Tennessee matchup, man, they were just giving it to Tease Tabor. Giving it to Tease Tabor. I think there was even that
was the Ducks pull trucks here.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of yapping from Florida, and they did not show up.
And obviously that's the last time that College Game Day was in town, and the last time Tennessee was favored in this matchup. So a lot of storylines to follow in this game. Eric, we appreciate your insight and perspective on this team, and we look forward to seeing you in Neyland Stadium on Saturday, bud.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for having me on. Had a blast.
Absolutely. We're going to jump to this final break. We'll come back on the other side and wrap up the Gators Online Podcast live from Spurs Gridiron Grill.
Coming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Welcome back into the Gators Online Podcast, live from Spurs Gridiron Grill. Appreciate Eric for joining us in the last segment. Some good talk on the Tennessee Vols, and just getting his perspective on the team and where they're at. Year 2 under Josh Heupel. You can tell the difference, I think, obviously offensively, and I think we'll see defensively if they can mimic the Kirby Smart, Mark Stoops game plan against Anthony Richardson on Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't think Kentucky would be able to do it as well as they did. Obviously, the guys Georgia had doing it last year, that was just a legendary defense.
That helps.
There is a blueprint. But, like I've said and kind of like I've written, stop helping teams stop Anthony Richardson. You're right now, the way Florida's calling games, and I get it, there's nothing behind Anthony Richardson right now.
Well, there's Jalen Kitna that we learned this week.
There's nothing behind Anthony Richardson right now, and I get you don't want to get him hurt. There was a play last week against USF where he gets tackled on a scramble, and he's like limping off on his right leg, not putting any weight on it.
The next play, he sailed it, and then the play after that, they called a quarterback run. He got hit low, he got hit high at the same time, and then he got gang tackled by 6 players. The play after that, he threw that interception, which I think might have had an effect.
Yep.
Just a theory.
So RTDB, run the dang ball.
Yeah. Don't give Montrell Johnson just 6 carries.
I mean, we've got it's
6 carries, Nick.
They've got 99 carries, and nobody has more than 3 than the next person. You've got the 3 running backs and Anthony Richardson. Everyone's between 22 and 23 carries, I think.
Now, in Billy's defense,
22 and 26 carries.
Had his offense run more than 48 plays, I would imagine Montrell would have gotten more than 6 carries. But if you only get 48 plays, somebody's got to be at double digits, and it's got to be Trevor or Montrell. They got to be able, or Anthony. Double-digit carries from Anthony would not be bad in this game.
I think it's frustrating for me because we have seen some atrocious offensive lines at the University of Florida in the 10 years, 11 years that we've been doing this. Some terrible offensive lines, and Florida has one of the best offensive lines that they've had since I've been covering the team. You have the ability with the running back room
and by the way,
the quarterback and this offensive line to just lean on other teams and impose your will. And it's just like, well, the numbers aren't saying that we should do that, so let's pass. It's like, no. dictate the game. Don't let the game and your opponent dictate what you're going to do. Go in there with the attitude that this is our strength. If we get beat by playing to our strength, cool. Then you beat us at our own game. But you're going away from your strength because they're trying to beat your strength, and now you're throwing the ball more than you should with a quarterback who's still developing as a passer.
And they're doing all that. The credit that you gave the offensive line with your right tackle out. I mean, Austin Barber stepped right in and like they haven't missed a beat.
No.
So to Nick's point, one of the keys to the game for Florida is RTDB.
Sandra Bullock. Quit all those trick plays, Chip. Run the dang ball.
And the Gators got a commitment this week at the running back position for 2024. And they saw one of the staffers tweet the run the damn ball hashtag.
Yeah,
so
I'm ready for it.
That's obviously their bread and butter. And I think that's what they're going to have to do successfully in order to kill some clock, sustain some drives, and keep that stinking ball away from Tennessee's offense, which brings us to our next key to the game for Florida, handling that up-tempo attack, man. I mean, we'll mention without Ventrell Miller too, but just that alone, with Ventrell or without Ventrell, it's going to be difficult. And how they've simulated that in practice, what they're going to be able to do to try and slow them down. They got to get some stops defensively. They got to create some turnovers. They got to get to Hendon Hooker as well, like throw him off his rhythm. And that's going to be one of the toughest tests for the Gators on Saturday.
And I think if you're Florida, go back to some Will Muschamp ball in terms of win the time of possession. I think the best thing you can do for your defense is to have longer sustained drives. You don't need to run that high octane offense. And Billy mentioned, when we were asking if you can simulate it, he's like, well, we do some tempo things, just that like they only do tempo. So like we can simulate it, but that's not our offense. I think you need to take time. Let your defense, like if you're going to be going 3 and out, make it a 3-minute 3 and out or a 2-minute 3 and out. You can't afford to pass on first down, pass on second, pass on third. Now we're 3 and out. We've wasted 13 seconds of game clock, maybe 45 seconds of real time, and we're sending our defense back out to this track meet. I think it behooves Florida not only to run the ball because that's what they're best at doing, but to give their defense a much needed breather, because when Tennessee's offense is on the field, it's green light, go, go, go.
Yeah. And obviously not having Ventrell, but potentially is going to have a lot to do with Florida's ability to withstand this offensive attack. I think that you gain something potentially in some of your young players from an athleticism standpoint, from a pass coverage standpoint that you might not have with Ventrell, but you're missing so much more that it's,
you gave up 300 yards of rushing to USF.
Yeah,
but minus some bad snaps, you gave up 300 yards on the ground,
and that was that was getting gashed in the ground game. I think now it's going to hurt you Saturday in the passing game. Now Tennessee can run the ball too, but the pressure that's going to be put on those young linebackers in coverage, trying to hustle back to the line of scrimmage just to go out there and cover some more. Man, it's it doesn't give you confidence, I think, going into this game. Now, it will be interesting to see how much more we see from some of these Patrick Toney defensive packages. We know that he likes to play a lot of defensive backs. Maybe you get a lot of them in this game. Maybe Amari Burney's probably the only one that's playing linebacker consistently in this matchup, and a guy who is a former defensive back. So, this is going to be a lot on him, a lot on this defense, and I think them being able to get some stops, get Hendon Hooker off of his rhythm is going to be key in this matchup. And I think every game, this is always key, right? Turnover margin, winning the turnover battle. I think that for Florida, it's the reason that they lost to Kentucky, and it's the reason that they won against USF.
That's crazy.
You're
right, but that's crazy.
And I think, if anything, they made the game clinching interception against Utah that came into play there. So I think once again in this game, given the style of this team, they are going to have to create some takeaways. And Anthony Richardson, he cannot turn over the ball Saturday. No fumbles, no picks. Like, Florida's got to play the cleanest game offensively that they've had this year, and they've got to have the most turnovers that they've created yet. And for them to have a chance, I think, in this game.
And it's interesting because I think they went to I think they were almost working on a little bit of the offense against USF at home when it was quiet, of the looking over and just watching Anthony Richardson, because this week is going to be loud. And it's Florida looks over and they've got their signs up that you know are calling the play in, but handle that environment. And something big that Eric said of Tennessee's offense starting slow. The best way to handle that environment is for Tennessee to start slow, to get an early lead, make those fans have to cheer and stay as loud as they are when Tennessee runs through the tee, down 14-0 in the first quarter, down 10-0 in the first quarter, to try to take the fans out of that game early. But I am excited to see that environment, because it is what, like Josh Heupel said, and like Billy Napier has said about the Swamp. That kind of environment is what makes college football special. And I've been there with over 100,000 before.
Well, and you mentioned that brings us to our final two keys to the game. Specifically on that point, this is Anthony Richardson's first career road start.
Yep,
a lot to unpack here.
Fourth career start.
Third
against the top 20 opponent.
Insane. A lot to unpack here, because he's played on the road in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
First career road start, but he's played on the road in the SEC. However, he ain't played in anything like this.
Well, Death Valley was pretty.
Nick.
Death Valley was loud.
Nick. That was a nooner.
Yep.
For a fired Coach O. That crowd was not. I mean, I don't remember what the attendance was, but it ain't. That environment is not going to be what Neyland Stadium is going to be on Saturday at 3:30. So. And then when he came into that game, I don't know. I don't know how much stock I put into that. Although the one thing that I will put into it that I'm interested to see Saturday is we've seen Anthony go through a lot these first three games. Not done so well dealing with the pressure, right? Mentally. How does he do now away from home? Away from the home environment, away from Gainesville? We saw how he played in Death Valley. Like, dude left it all out on the field. Like, does he potentially play better on the road, or does getting out of that Gainesville bubble do him some good?
Maybe, yeah.
But Anthony Richardson is obviously a key to the game for Florida, not just, taking care of the ball and allowing Florida to win the turnover battle, but just him mentally. How does he deal with the crowd? How does he deal with the pressure? Does he feed off of being the villain in Neyland? I'm interested to see that.
I hadn't even thought about that. But that is interesting. You get away from the home crowd. Maybe some men just want to see the world burn. Maybe he likes being the villain and hearing the boos, and you feed into that.
Instead of the boos from the Florida fans in the Swamp, that's a different type of feel. They'll
give him a little Felipe. I want to see Anthony have fun. I think so much, and we've talked about this on the show, I think so much of the other stuff has crept into his head. He has the opportunity with a good season, or coming into the year, had an opportunity with a good season to make the kind of NFL money that doesn't set him and his family up, but sets his potential future grandchildren up.
Yeah.
Against Kentucky, I think I'm going up against Will Levis. Half the NFL's here. Todd McShay's following me around like a stalker. I need Gainesville PD to get this guy off my back. I think he let some of that stuff creep into his head. I just want him to go back out and have fun. Give me a round off back tuck handspring before the game. Don't hurt yourself, but give me one of those. Have fun, the kind of fun that we saw, even when you were the backup doing backflips.
Give a Tebow pump up to the crowd.
Just have fun. You got to remember why you're playing the game. Yes, there are other things going on outside, and your play will dictate your future, but just go back to that 14-year-old kid in an East Side helmet and just remember why you're playing the game and how fun it is to go out there with your team and play football.
And then our final key before we get into the picks, this is clearly Nick's most important key to the game. And that's the game changers.
Oh,
Florida has yet
say tin roof of the bar in Knoxville.
Florida has yet to really make a game-changing special teams play. Now, they've made some plays on special teams that have changed the game in the wrong way. They've also had the opposing team make some plays on special teams that have benefited the Gators, the missed kick, some other special teams blunders. But I think Florida in this game to win could use a big return, a block kick, something on special teams that allows them to, at the very least, flip the field or get some momentum. I think that has to happen Saturday.
Bro, Brandon James ain't coming out of that. Oh man, the Brandon James might be a trigger name for Tennessee fans, but he ain't coming out. I don't want to see them return punts or kicks. Fair catch it last week. ETN just walking out like this as the ball sailed into the end zone. I don't want to see him return punts or kicks. Adam,
I'd like to see Lingard on return for the record.
Yeah, I'm good.
I mean, let that guy run out all his frustration on a kickoff.
Actually, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Let him do that.
This guy's got speed.
You talked me into it. Put Lingard back there. Adam Mahalik nailed it.
Let's go. Mihalak.
He's been fantastic. The walk on has been fantastic. You're going to get an extra year out of Trey Smack because of how good. Or shoot, Trey Smack might transfer and Adam might get a scholarship. Would like to see a big game from Jeremy Crawshaw. I think if this is a game that might be close, as I think you think it will be, I think you need to play the field position game. And Johnny Townsend, Tommy Townsend have had big games against Tennessee. Have been game changers. Hunters are people too.
All right, it's time for the picks.
Week slate of games.
Nick and I were 4-1 last week. Mike Leach let us both down in Death Valley.
Brian Kelly's family won the game.
Man. Tough to get 5 games this week. We're going to run through them rapid fire. Arkansas at Texas A&M. Both of us were right with our A&M picks last week against the Canes.
Mm-hmm.
What you got?
Woo! Pig suey.
In College Station, huh?
In College Station.
I like it. I'm gonna go A&M.
Okay.
I'm rolling with the Aggies. I think they got something rolling with Max Johnson. Clemson at Wake Forest, top 25 matchup.
Clemson.
I'm going with you. Like to see an upset there. I'll be tuned in for it. Texas at Texas Tech, only a 7-point game. Spread wise.
Yep, Texas without a quarterback. I'm still going with the Longhorns. Hook 'em.
Yeah, I think Sarkisian's got that program heading the right direction. I think it will be a close game, but I got Texas as well. Got creative with this pick. Vandy at Alabama. No, we are not picking the game. We're picking the spread. 40.5. Does the Crimson Tide cover?
That's a lot of points. Yeah, I'm going to say they cover.
I'm going to throw some respect on the Commodores, and I'm going to say
Vandy covers 40.
Vandy covers. I think that they find a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Saturday's matchup in Knoxville. Gators are 10.5, 11-point underdogs, I think, give or take. Nick and I are 2-1 in the season when it comes to picking Florida games, and we are about to be at odds with this one. Negative Nick, take us away.
Florida, biggest dog that they've ever been against Tennessee. Stadium is sold out. College game days there. Tennessee finds ways to lose to Florida. The series is 31-20. It's 31-10 if you take out Florida losing the first 10 games in the series. Florida, the coaching staff needs to be honest with themselves this week. You've lost to Kentucky. You're not beating Georgia. This is your championship game this year. Go into Knoxville, sell out. Let Anthony Richardson be Anthony Richardson. You need to win this game.
If you don't have him for Eastern Washington,
and you lose to Eastern Washington, then that's on you. You should not lose to Eastern. You should not lose the thank you, Jim McElwain, for coming to our school game, which is why Eastern Washington's even on the schedule. Florida needs to sell out. Be honest with themselves. You're not beating Georgia. You sell out to win this game. Florida goes up to Knoxville, not only covers the spread, wins the football game. I got the Gators this week.
Whoa. Folks, Negative Nick has turned over a new leaf. Hoodie on and everything. I think that the Gators are going to have to go in there hooded up.
Yeah.
Bro,
wear your black Air Forces this week.
If 51 takes the field, the Gators got a shot. But I don't expect him to play. I think that he's going to be missed on Saturday. And I just think that this Tennessee offensive attack is for real. I think that, they've obviously, had opportunities to win this matchup in recent years and haven't been able to get it done. I think that this game in Knoxville with Florida still trying to figure out things offensively and missing their leader on offense or on defense is going to be too much to overcome. I do think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with Tennessee here. Be at odds with Nick this week. So we will see on Saturday.
Hoods up, black Air Forces on, going into Knoxville to steal one.
Well, we will be in Knoxville for the game. Looking forward to it. Sold out crowd on hand for this checkered attendance that we will see. So we'll see if the Gators can go up there and get the win over number 11 Tennessee, or if they come back 2-2. We'll be back next Thursday to break it all down live from Spurs Gridiron Grill. For Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Abolverdi.